Are you suffering because you don't feel like you are where you should be in life? You feel like you've missed a major milestone or you're about to miss a major milestone. It's causing you pain. It's causing you anxiety. Maybe the pressure is solely internal. Maybe you are also getting external pressure for this milestone. But with that external pressure, by the way, if you didn't also have the internal pressure, the external pressure would be kind of like an annoying fly, but not like a hive of angry bees. So, this is a kind of comparisonitis that's super common and very painful and not really necessary. So, I'm going to give you 4 concepts that I think will really help you shift how you think about this. And then at the end, I'm going to share a pretty concrete exercise you can do that I think might be really helpful for you. So, framework number 1, life is not a 3-act play. There are not like certain things that have to happen in act 1 so that such and such can happen in act 2. And then, therefore, act 3 will either be a tragedy or a comedy. Things will either end up good or bad, but boom, you have it all like neat and wrapped up. Plays are like that. Life is not. Life is messy, and there's really no such thing. I think part of the reason we get stuck in this way of thinking is that between age 5 and age 22 in the US, if you go to college and you go straight through, between those ages, you're in school, and school is like levels. You finish kindergarten, you go to first grade, you go to second grade, you boom, boom, boom. There's a very clear thing you're supposed to achieve each year. If you don't pass, you get left behind. As you're approaching college, you begin to get anxious. Oh, I got to get into college, right? So you have steps along the way. So we become very kind of structured in our thinking. Like even like once you get to college, okay, you have to choose your major by this date. And if it's going to be that kind of major, you might have to choose it by that date minus a year, right? But then if you want that kind of career, once you graduate, you're going to have to get this kind of job. So we enter life as young adults thinking that that's going to continue, right? And it doesn't. So in many countries around the world, and I'll speak specifically about the US, but I think you can generalize to your culture, there are these kind of generally accepted milestones, okay? So hit a certain age, graduate high school, you sort of hit a certain age, you graduate college, and then you're going to go on, do the beginning part of your career, middle, and somewhere in the middle part of your career, you should also be choosing a spouse. A few years later, you should be getting married. A couple years later, you should be having kids, right? It's like people think that's what's supposed to happen. But we're also making the assumption that that leads to a happy life, which it may or may not. There's no like prescribed formula to get to that happy life. It's not prescribed. There are a lot of people who've lived really engaged, active, happy lives who didn't go to college, who didn't get married, who didn't follow any of the prescribed norms. I've totally changed careers 3 times, all right? My changes have been more dramatic than many, right? It's okay. It's all just like life is more like a soup than a 3-act play. So seeing the flexibility in these prescribed milestones, beginning to question them is very helpful, because if you put your priority on that milestone, let's say your priority is you want to be married before you're 30. And I understand a lot of women feel like, oh, better be married by the time I'm 30 so I can have my kids before I'm 34, right? Because biologically, run out of time, etc. Like, I understand. But if you make that your priority, you may make a really bad choice in marriage. And being in a bad marriage, that's a really unhappy place to be. So the milestone can't be the goal. If your goal is to find a meaningful relationship, find a meaningful relationship. Now that can take time, right? This leads me to concept number 2, which is that we don't really know what's going to make us happy. We really don't. We might think, oh, I have to go to that college because I want to get that kind of degree and I want to have that kind of career. And then you get into that career and you're miserable and you're like, well, what was I thinking? I don't want this at all. Or in the example I used earlier, you are anxious to get married, you rush, you get married and you're like, oh no, what did I do? So I've achieved a lot of things in my life that once I've achieved them, I've been like, not really sure that was the best thing for me. So keeping a sense of humility that we don't really know what the best path for us is. And whatever path we take, we are going to have like our desires, our view of the world, our goals, and then the constraints of the universe. And there's a lot of constraints. And somehow we negotiate it, but it's not along a timeline. The number 3 concept to keep in mind is that whenever we are in comparisonitis mode, we are comparing our insides, how we feel, to somebody else's outsides. I talk about this a lot more in one of my videos about how to stop comparing. I can link that here. But basically, we are linking a feeling of happiness with whatever it is we think we lack, which ties to we think we know what will make us happy, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We think that if that person has that thing, they're happy. I guarantee you they might be happy about some things, but they also probably have a lot of things that cause them pain and they're not happy about, and we don't really know. So that is something to really keep in mind when you get stuck in, particularly like right now, we're going into the holidays. So this isn't a holiday video, but it's just before Thanksgiving in the US. So we're entering like a month of seeing extended family members where you might be like, I can't believe my cousin, got that promotion and I haven't yet gotten the promotion in my job. I really should have. Or, oh, that sibling got married and, whatever. The comparisonitis can be just like hopping all over the place. But just remember, there's no direct tie between what it is you think you have to do right now and real happiness. Number 4 is just to keep in mind, like you're on a path, right? So that thing you want, that you think will make you happy, which maybe will, maybe won't. That's okay. You can get there. You will eventually get there. But the universe doesn't respond to the little time clocks we set. And if you feel like you should have achieved something by now that you haven't yet achieved, maybe take a step back and think through, am I focusing on what I would need to do to get there? Am I putting my effort into the most productive areas? So, for example, if I think I should have been promoted, do I need different training? Do I need to move to a different department? What is it I might need to do to get where I want? So we can sometimes use this feeling of comparing ourselves, right, to others who have something we think we want, and use it a little bit like a motivator, like an instruction booklet of like, okay, how do I do that? But to do that, we have to believe in ourselves. We have to have some sense of agency, some sense of, if I put my mind to this, I can do it. So I want to mention the exercise I mentioned before. And this exercise is from the Buddhist tradition, but it doesn't require any particular religious beliefs. It really can apply to anybody. But it's called Sympathetic Joy. And Sympathetic Joy in the Buddhist tradition is really considered to be kind of one of those like really elevated mind states. What it basically means is to take joy in somebody else's joy. So for those of us who are highly empathetic, right, the world can be kind of painful because you're going around and you're just absorbing everybody's pain. What if we could focus on their joy? And what if we could feel joy that they feel joy? Now, I think there are some situations where we naturally feel sympathetic joy. Like for me, it might be like seeing my granddaughter running around, just sort of like, she'll just be fascinated by like the stone she's picking up and throwing down the street, or organizing, or the other day she took like chess pieces and made them into like little families and stuff. And she just had so much fun doing it. So watching her have joy in doing that brings me joy. For many people, watching a puppy play will bring them joy because we can empathize with and feel with others' happiness. We don't tend to apply this to people who perhaps have achieved something we would want for ourselves, but beginning to open up and feel sympathetic joy. And so instead, let's say somebody achieves a milestone, they get an award, and you would really like to have gotten that kind of award. But rather than be like, oh, they got it, I didn't, if you just open your heart and feel what that would feel like, then you get to experience that joy. So I do have a whole meditation video on sympathetic joy. I can link that here as well. I find it to be a beautiful practice, and it's one that can really, as I said, bring you more joy. I hope you can move to a place of more acceptance about the process, not the goal, more enjoyment of the process of getting somewhere rather than this feeling of like steps that I have to hit. All right. Let me know what you think of this video. Comment below if you have any questions, comments. If you liked it, please do hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel is a big help. Those videos I mentioned should be linked here at the end, and I hope you have a great week.